tell me when you're ready to start recording and we'll do it.
I've been recording.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Alt Interviews. Today we have Dan, Taxation is Theft Behrman, and me and Joe will be asking him questions about his recent LP Libertarian Party presidential run, where he's going to go forward now that Joe Jorgensen is the nominee, and several questions about issues facing America today. How you doing today, Dan?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
We're very grateful to have you here today. First thing that I want to ask you, just a really easy question to start things off. Are you a fan of pineapple pizza?
Oh, hell yeah, man.
You do like it? All right.
That-
So I
that's the
totally
best.
I totally got the whole message you were trying to send out with the pineapple pizza, but I was curious, like, does this man actually like the pineapple pizza?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, so now we know. Um, Next question I got for you, and this is a more serious one. Since Joe Jorgensen won the nomination, where are you going to go from here?
So we're looking at a couple different options. One is, to keep running as president, as independent. However we can do, because ultimately, it's about spreading this message. And of course, if we did do that, it wouldn't be running against Joe. It would hopefully be in support of her. Um, Another option that we're looking at is a gubernatorial run in Texas in 2022, and of course, definitely, absolutely, a presidential run again in 2024. What we're going to do leading up to that, we're still talking about with the team. We're still planning on helping other candidates. I just talked to one in Illinois who's running for Congress, and we actually we expanded this program, helping other candidates. We're actually going to be helping a candidate who's running for a local position in Uganda as well as a local position in Australia. So we really are still trying to keep this a worldwide movement. We know that a lot of people want liberty around the world, and we shouldn't be selfish and just keep that for ourselves. Let's spread it everywhere it wants to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like you're keeping your options really wide open there. There's a lot of different paths you could take there, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Next question I want to ask you. I took a look at your YouTube channel, the taxation is theft one, and it seems like you spend a lot of time talking to just about anyone and everyone. When if you look at any other politicians, I don't mean to throw you in the bunch with the
Yeah, don't
likes
call me
the
that P
likes
word, man.
yeah no, but for the lack of a better word, you don't really see those people interacting with everybody as much. They're very closed off, and they usually just do interviews with, say, big media. So I guess I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Like, what motivates you to discuss things with just about anybody and everybody?
Yeah, I mean, and you'll notice I also talked to a lot of candidates who are running. I don't want to say against me, but for the same position. Sharing
Yeah.
the platform with them. It, I'm more interested in um, spreading the ideology and educating people to the damage that government causes. Um, there's this question that always comes up in the Libertarian Party. That's, should we focus on party or should we focus on principle? Should we pick someone who's a true hardcore libertarian, or should we pick somebody who can help us raise some money and get some more people in the door? And I've always been of the persuasion that we should focus on the ideology, and that should always be number one. Um, and so, because of that, I like having discussions with other people. One, because in my own race, I started out mostly just with this taxation is theft thing. Let's get rid of government. But having these conversations with other people has really led me to grow in how I communicate that message with people. Where I haven't changed the heart of the message, I still think we need to absolutely get rid of all taxes and any destructive government program, which is pretty much all of them. But it has helped me realize that, yeah, there are other people out there who, if we just went in on day one, cleaned house and shut everything down, they would be negatively impacted by that. And so that caused me to look for solutions to make sure that we didn't do that. And I started proposing a lot of these solutions and finding answers to this. And of course, that got me a lot of support with people outside of the party, which, ultimately, whether that's the reason you're trying to give this message to them or not, we're never going to win. A libertarian is never going to win if they don't have the support of people from the Democrats and the Republicans. And if you can't figure out how to get them on board with this ideology, you might as well not run.
That's a really unique perspective, and I wish more people would adopt that kind of strategy nowadays. It's very refreshing to see somebody like you making the rounds and just spreading the message wherever and however you can. So thank you for
Thanks.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another question that I have, and this one might be a little bit more difficult. Um, when you're talking about education reform, and I read a little bit about what you want to do about this. When you claim that discounting student loans will lower the prices of schools, so obviously, if they're not getting the loan money, schools are going to have to cut spending. So I just kind of wanted to ask you, where do you think they should cut spending?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest things that they have is administrators. I think the last time I heard it was like 3 administrators for every teacher, which is insane. Um, but we also see we have this paradigm of people think like, yeah, we should give our children to the government and let them teach them everything they need to know. I saw a great meme today that was like, wait, so you're not educated enough to educate your own children, but you're willing to give those children to a public school, which is the same school that you were educated in that didn't make you smart enough to raise your own kids. I thought that was like an uh, interesting little paradox there. But yeah, I mean, what we've seen from the coronavirus shutdown is we've seen a lot of people who've been forced almost to homeschooling. And and I have this other plan, the New American Dream, which challenges the paradigm that we have to have every parent in every household working 40 hours a week and therefore never having any time to raise their own kids. Um, and I think that's a huge part of what's been forcing us to use these public schools as daycare centers just because we don't have the time to spend with our family. And we should absolutely be able to do that. So like I really want to open up people's eyes to all of the possibilities that are out there, and to reconsider a lot of what this is. But yeah, absolutely, the way the government spends money on schools is just I mean, you could look at everything and say this is absolutely wrong, from the books that they buy. I mean, if you've ever been to college and you've seen how expensive those books are, they're spending the same amount on high school textbooks, which are, except for a few updates here and there, they're mostly the same thing that they've been publishing for the last 20, 30 years. So they're just buying newer editions and they're spending ridiculous amounts of money on these books. I'm sure everything else that they spend money on is just a complete waste. They're um, they've got monopolies and everything else, the same thing we see in the healthcare industry, that's doing this. We also have to change our perspective of why are we going to college, because for a lot of people it's, I want to go to college so I can get a better salary. But is that all you want to do with your life, is figure out how can I make more money every month? Like, isn't there more to life than that? If you're going to school to learn um, basket weaving is the stereotype of bad college choices, but basket weaving or art or philosophy or anything like that, those are absolutely like amazing subjects that when I was going to college, community college, I enjoyed some of those subjects the most, because I really had no idea what I want to do with my life. But at the same time, I wasn't racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt
Right,
over
right.
that, because like I knew there wasn't really any money in that. Um, so I think we really need to, as a society, kind of challenge all these things and recognize that they've been sold to us the same way everything else is sold to us, with false promises. There's I remember when I was in high school, they were telling me absolute guarantee, if you don't graduate high school, you're going to make 10,000 a year. If you graduate high school, you're going to make 12,000 a year. If you get a bachelor's degree, then whatever. And they had this whole grading system all the way up to 30 or $50,000 a year, and that was the cap. I'm making more than that now, and I never graduated college. In fact, I never went to college for what I'm doing as a software engineer. So and I know that's kind of a weird industry that has always been different from the norm. But I mean, there's so many trade schools that have shown the same thing. I know people who got into welding and they're making 80 to 100 grand plus welding. And so, we really have to change what we think about the school system. And I could probably talk about it for hours because there's so many different facets to it.
Yeah. So, I see. So it's not as simple as where should we cut spending. It's a huge question. There's a lot of different facets and angles to it. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I see. Um, Next question, and this is the second to last question I have for you, by the way. If you became president, would you release the JFK files and the 9/11 files in their entirety? And
Yeah,
when would you do
absolutely.
that?
Well, because the government works for us, and we should have access to anything we want to have access to. I mean, think about it like this: if you own a business and you have a uh, let's say you have a business and you hire somebody to work security, and part of their job is to monitor the security camera, and there's a break-in, and
Mm-hmm.
you want to know, okay, what happened? What was the break-in? Now, the guy that you hired, he tells you, okay, look, I'm going to give you little pieces of the security footage, but I'm not going to give you the whole thing because it's need to know, and there's nothing on the rest of that footage that you need to see, even though I work for you. Like, what sense would that make in the real world for your employee to tell you that? No, he's working for you. He was hired to keep you secure, and everything that he recorded on that footage belongs to you. And the only case that he would not want to show that to you is if it was an inside job. He handed the keys off to somebody else, and he knows the guy in the footage that he doesn't want to show you, or there's footage of him handing the key. Like, that's really the only situation where he would not want you to see that footage. So, is that what the government's doing? A lot of people would say yes. I tend to side with that because where there's smoke, there's fire. But of course, I don't like to make any assertions behind conspiracy theories without hard facts. So, of course, show the files. Let's see the facts.
Okay, yeah. That was gonna be my next question for you. I was gonna be like, oh, so do you think it's an inside job? And you went right ahead and answered that one.
I'm ahead of the curve on that one.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, very good. I like that answer. Last question I have for you, and then I'm sure Peyton has some more questions. Thinking big picture, what kind of things do you want to accomplish in your lifetime?
Oh man, I just want the world to be free. That's I don't know. That's kind of what I've taken on to be my purpose in life. Um, there are some other projects within that. One thing that I'm working on is a social media. I don't want to call it a platform. It's more of a protocol that I'm hoping will kind of break up this monopoly that some of the big Silicon Valley monopolies have um, on social media and content and news and everything else, and censorship. Hopefully, that's something that I'm going to be working on here pretty soon as kind of like a little hobby project. But I'm still going to be continuing to work with other candidates, uh, and of course, gearing up for the next race that I'm going to run. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think project wise, that's kind of always
Yeah,
I don't see straying too far from that,
that
too far into the future. So
that's a really ambitious goal you've got. And I would love to hear more, maybe at another time, about this project that you're working on for big tech monopolies and big tech censorship and all that stuff, because that's something that our brand is very much an activist for, and we're very into that kind of stuff anyway. But and that's all
awesome.
the questions that I have for you. And I think Peyton should. I think Peyton's here. I think he's still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I got some. Yeah, so my first question, I wanted to ask you about the Joe Jorgensen campaign specifically. Um, As somebody who was running for president, what do you think is Joe Jorgensen's winning strategy for this election year?
I'm not sure what her strategy is going to be. It's really going to be interesting to see. I know I do have a lot of confidence that she is going to pick a platform that, once, or I guess I should say, once she combines her strategy and her platform, it is going to be something that really does reach out. Something that I did with my campaign that she's always said, uh, during the debates, is we've been focusing on how do we connect with people and get them to see that libertarianism is good for them. And she's always said in the debates, we've been working so hard on selling, what it is and how it works, that we forgot to sell them on what are the benefits to you. That was kind of her way of putting it. And so I think that is absolutely really important. And so I don't know how she's going to put that into action yet, but I'm really excited to see that, because that's how we planned our campaign, and that's really what I'd like to see out of her campaign.
Yeah, so I have another question, and this one's more about you said during the, I believe, LP Texas debate that you have never paid taxes to the US government or the Mexican government in your life. And you said this in a point about, kind of living the lifestyle of libertarianism. Do you think libertarians should embrace this more, and how should they go about it?
So let me correct that a little bit. I haven't paid federal income tax in most of the last, um, let me say, 15 years. Um, and yeah, so I wouldn't say ever. I haven't had a driver's
That's
license
my
in something like 12 or so years. But yeah, so would I encourage other people to do the same? Um, it's a difficult question because I know there are risks that come along with this. The IRS it's a scam. The income tax is not something that most people are supposed to be paying because they're not liable for that tax. But the IRS has done an amazing job at making the system so complicated to trick us into believing that when you try to, let's say, opt out of their system, and they come around and say, "Oh, but you have to pay this," if you don't know what to say to that, then you could end up in jail, and so many people have. And it's something that, this is a movement that started in the 70s or maybe sooner, where people started saying that you didn't have to pay the income tax. But a lot of people have gone to jail because they tried saying, "Oh, well, the 16th Amendment was never ratified," which it wasn't. Um, but that doesn't matter because the 16th Amendment has nothing to do with the income tax, even though the words are there. It gets very complicated, and if you don't know the right thing to say, you can end up in jail. The same thing with driving without a license. Um, yes, you might be legally correct that you don't need a license to use your own car to move around within a state, but um, if you get stopped by a police officer and he says, "Where's your driver's license?" Well, what are you going to say to him? It's not as easy as saying, "Oh, I don't need one. The law doesn't require," because as far as they've been trained, yeah, you do need one, and the law does require it. So I don't recommend that people do this. I do recommend people learn about it. And for anybody who maybe doesn't have much to lose, doesn't have much to risk, and is really, really interested in becoming active and fighting this, then, I would not stand in their way from doing that. But I don't want to encourage people to take on this risk and then, come back to me and say, "Hey, you told me I didn't need a license, and now the cops, the courts, and everybody else are completely agreeing, or with the side that I do need it, and now I have all these fines and facing jail time, and it's all because of you." That's what I don't want. So that's the main reason I don't encourage people to do this. It is a very, very complicated system on purpose.
Yeah. So these activities, to me, sound a lot like the philosophy of agorism. Are you aware of agorism?
Yeah, and actually, I I thought you were going to say sovereign citizens, because that's I did learn about them kind of on my path to where I am now. But of course, I can't say that I agree with everything that they everything that they believe in. Agorism is, yeah, absolutely. I think they take it a little bit further by, going completely off grid, and even, dealing in markets that um, are not regulated, growing their own food and that sort of thing. So yeah, agorism is also really interesting, but I think that's also a pretty diverse subculture.
Okay. Um, my next question, I wanted to ask you about the new American dream specifically. Um, what's wrong with the old American dream, and why do we need a new one?
I think the old American dream is kind of dead. Um, it's it's kind of a good idea, and you ask people what it is, and it's always something different. um you ask other people, and it's still here, it's still available to everyone. Yeah, well, if you work hard, you can have enough money to have your house with the white picket fence and 2.5 kids. um but it fails to account for a lot of the government programs that are in place that have been put there, ever since the beginning of the 20th century, and continuously growing and growing with regulations and taxes and everything. They've put us into a position where, yeah, it's there if you work hard enough, but at the same time, you're going to, you know, uh, in terms of, let's put this in terms of man hours. Let's say it costs you 1,000 man hours to build your own home, the 2-story house with the white picket fence. 1,000 man hours. You're going to work 10,000 man hours just to be able to afford that. And that's because if you work 10,000 hours, you're gonna have 4,000 of those hours taken away from you by income tax. You're going to have another couple thousand taken away by property tax, another couple thousand by all these things. And so the combined net effect is that we're all working and working and working and living paycheck to paycheck. And yeah, you might be able to get a 30-year mortgage that's going to stick you in that house, but you're going to be in debt until it's time for you to retire. And then once you retire, your social security is barely going to pay for anything except for the property tax. So I would say that the old American dream, yeah, it's still kind of there, but it's just an illusion. It's not real. It's not real freedom or prosperity, and that's really what I'm going for, is to say no. Let's have actual freedom and prosperity. Let's have a system where if you're able to build a life for yourself, then you're able to keep that life, and you're able to hold on to that and pass that along from generation to generation to your kids, and they're able to take that and build on it, and build even further into the future, and spend their time going to college and learning things. Imagine if you could spend your entire life learning and inventing and creating, instead of spending a couple years of your life doing that just so that you can spend the rest of your life working for somebody else and their dream, and then all at the end of the day, so you have nothing left to pass on to your kids. That's terrible. We got to get out of that system.
All right, yeah. My next question is, and this is a question basically everyone gets asked because of the time we're living in, but what do you think went wrong with the response to coronavirus, and how would have you done it different, or what needs to happen?
So so many things went wrong. It started out, they were denying us access to masks and tests. um we started out in a weak position because we had fewer hospitals and doctors because of government regulations. A lot of people don't know this, but uh, let's say you have some investors who come along and say, "Hey, I want to build a new hospital, right? I can stick my money in any industry. I want to put it into medical industry." Um, and they go to a town and they say, "I want to build a hospital right here." And the town or city or state tells them, "Okay, that's fine. First, you need to get a certificate of need." What that means is you need to get a whole bunch of data, and you need to prove to us that we need another hospital before you're able to build it. If somebody with money wants to build a hospital, why wouldn't you let them just build a hospital? That makes absolutely no sense. The reason they don't want that is they're protecting other hospitals. So we already had fewer hospitals, which, you know, when this whole flattening the curve thing came out, why did they want to flatten the curve? Because they were trying to get it to go under what our healthcare capacity line was. And why was that line where it was? Because we didn't have more hospitals. Same thing with doctors. The government prevents people from becoming doctors. They might be absolutely qualified. They might have been doctors. They might have been some of the best doctors from around the world that have moved here to have a better life. And sorry, you can't work as a doctor even though you're absolutely qualified. The government has they've set us up so we went into this in a bad way, and of course, once it happened, there was government preventing access to all these things all along the way. In fact, there are COVID-19 tests right now that are still not approved by the FDA. And you know, all they have to do is say, yeah, you know what, we're not approving those tests. Okay, fine, put them in the marketplace. Just tell people they're not FDA approved. What's wrong with that? Let people, I mean, it's not like this is even a medication. This is a test, right? This is a little, you do a finger prick, you take a tiny little drop of blood out, which is what millions of diabetics do every single day. You take a little tiny piece of drop of blood out, you put it into this thing, and it tells you with I think about 80% accuracy whether or not you have corona, whether or not you have the antibodies, which means you previously had corona. Why don't people have access to that? Because the government says no. That's absolute insanity, and that's still going on today. So there's all this stuff with respirators where they were incentivizing hospitals. The the incentives they were giving to hospitals have driven up the numbers. So a lot of people who have died from underlying conditions, maybe they were maybe they already had heart conditions or respiratory conditions. These were already, well, let me not even say respiratory. Let's just say heart conditions, right? Um, they might have died from a heart attack this month had it, you know, even without coronavirus. That's still counted as a coronavirus death. Um, there are you know, all these things going on, and then people going into the hospitals that have a little bit of trouble breathing, they say, oh my god, you have coronavirus. The hospitals have been pushed to take all of those people and put them onto ventilators. Well, it turns out this isn't just like putting a mask on your face that's blowing air into your mouth. This is they're putting you, they're sedating you, they're making you unconscious, they're slipping a tube down your throat, and it's blowing compressed air into your lungs. And your lungs are already weakened because of the virus and mucus buildup. They're blowing compressed air in there, and there are some people who believe that these ventilators are actually killing people, and that had they been left off the ventilators, and at least, you know, see what we can do for them with antibiotics and you know, whatever else, that they might have survived. And they tried to suppress this information. If you Google it, you can see there are a couple articles. There's even a couple articles that have been deleted that you can see in Google's cache, from, like, you know, CNN, you know, big places. Um, and but this there nobody's really talking about this information. Um, I have a friend in the UK who's been doing a lot of independent research on this. And you know, a lot of people discount research that's done on Google, but this guy's actually been talking to research scientists and doctors and you know, serious legitimate people. Coronatruth.com. He's got amazing information there. But what the government does is they take their expert, they basically pick a side. This is our plan, and they pick doctors that support their plan, and they put all these doctors in front of us and say, just listen to the experts. But what they don't tell us is these are just our experts. There are other experts who disagree, but don't listen to them. And so what they're doing is they're giving us a very narrow view of what is really going on in this world with this coronavirus, in an attempt to force us into whatever they think is right. And then when they find out they were wrong, they just backstep a little bit. Oh my god, we found out some new information. Oh wow. Like, it's like, no, other people knew this, other people were suggesting this all along. You just and you know, the American public is partially at fault because that's kind of what they want. They don't want to be given information and have to decide for themselves. A lot of them just want, you know, well, the president should just tell us what to do, and they should do something. They were pressuring him from the beginning, right? He's not doing enough. Make him do more. Um, and you know, that kind of pushes the system into saying, you know, okay, yeah, well, they want us to do something. Let's just do something, and then they make really bad decisions. So It's not entirely their fault. I guess we should take a little bit of responsibility, but that's definitely what would have been done differently.
All right. I just have one last question, and this one is kind of about your candidacy and your persona in general. Um, you and Vermin Supreme, who were both running, got criticized a lot for not being a serious candidate. With Vermin Supreme, it was because he's been a satire candidate in the past, because of the boot he wears on his head and
The glitter.
exaggerated outfits. And
Right.
you, it's been the fact that your legal middle name is Taxation is Theft, and you wear the big yellow hat that says Taxation is Theft. Um, what do you think of this view of those personas, and do you think you can actually run a serious campaign while having I don't want to call them gimmicks, but these more flashier presentations and personas?
You can call it a gimmick. That's fine. I mean, look, Vermin's team adopted this hashtag in on the joke, which I think was great. They basically said all of politics is a joke. We're just in on it. Um, you know, it's and we had a little bit more of a serious approach because we actually had a platform laid out of the things that we are going to do. Um, but I think so a lot of this criticism has come from different places, right? Within the Libertarian Party, a lot of it came because these people were these people were basically worried that, hey, this guy's going to damage our brand. We're going to take this guy and send him out. He wants us to like select him and send him out into the world as a representative of what the Libertarian Party is, and we don't want to be associated with that image. So for them, it was kind of out of fear, because this was experimental. I mean, we didn't know how people were going to react to this, but it was something that I did because I knew, from my experience in advertising and marketing, is if you want people to notice something, and especially when you have a small budget because we're a third party, and especially because the party wasn't giving any of its candidates any support, um, you have to do something that's a little bit outrageous, and so we had to experiment with that. But we had a solid message behind it. But a lot of the libertarians were more concerned with, like, yeah, but people aren't going to hear that message. Well, we proved them wrong. We went out with this message. We got the attention with the hat, and people thought it was okay. Yeah, it was a joke, but like to them, they weren't taking that as an offensive message, because for them, it's like, when they see that, they don't have to immediately object to it because they don't see that as a threat to their own image. So instead, they see it, this guy in a suit with a big yellow hat that says taxation is theft, and they'll either say, "Well, he's wrong. Taxation isn't theft," and they'll come to the page and they'll start arguing and commenting, and then our social media team and our volunteers and our community would respond by teaching them that taxation actually is theft, and it would change a lot of minds. It would get them to start thinking that way. Then you would have other people who are just completely like, they don't know anything about libertarians, but they see the message and they're like, yeah, taxation is theft. I get taxed way too much. And then they come around and they're like, what is this guy? He has this ridiculous hat, but I mean, yeah, he's right. What is this? Is he running for president? Is this a joke? I don't know. Could be a fun joke. Let's support it. So we had so many different responses from it, but ultimately it was a net positive, because when we walk away from this, there are more people in this world today that believe that taxation is theft than there were when we started this campaign, and that's an absolute win. Now, whether or not that would have hurt the Libertarian Party as a whole and their credibility, I disagree with a lot of people on that. I don't think it would have. I think that would have, if anything, associated their brand more directly with the work that we did. But they don't want it. That's fine. We're gonna come back again with it in 2024. And of course, if we do this gubernatorial run in 2022, that's going to have the same message that will also be with the Libertarian Party, and we're helping candidates around the world. So like, and a lot of people are worried about the party itself, and they have this thing that, like, when I said I might run as an independent, A lot of people were upset. Oh, you're leaving the party because you're angry because you didn't win and you're just being a sore loser and all these other things. And it's like, no, I don't see the party that way. Like, I don't belong to the party. Like, I'm a piece of the party. The party doesn't own me. Um, I know what I want to do with my message in this world. I wanted to make an alliance with the Libertarian Party. They weren't ready for it. Okay, fine. We'll try it again another time. There's a I mentioned earlier that we're working with candidates in Australia and Uganda. In Uganda, they're forming a new party just for this, and it's not called the Libertarian Party. Um, I have to I have to remember what it's called. In Australia, it's called the Liberal Democrat Party, which sounds like the Democrats, right? But it's absolutely nothing like the Democrats. It's just like the Libertarian Party, but it's called the Liberal Democrat Party. So it's you know, it's not about a party. It's not about specific communities. It's about breaking outside of that and understanding that, hey, we're all humans. If we adopt the same philosophy, so that we can treat each other well and we can all have prosperous lives, then none of this party stuff matters. So that's ultimately the big goal. I think the gimmicks that we've used have helped more than they've hurt. And we're gonna keep continuing to push these things forward as much as we can.
Well, that was really beautifully said, Dan. I have one more question for you before we end this, and it's another just really easy one. Um, how do your parents or your family feel about you changing your middle name?
um I actually asked them before that, and they were like, yeah, whatever.
That's nice that you have a supportive family like that.
Yeah, it's I mean, they've kind of already known that I was a little bit of a little crazy. I think they've been worried about some of my shenanigans in the past. My dad would always say things like, okay, well, I'm not going to bail you out. To anything that I would suggest about, whenever I would bring up, not having to pay taxes or not needing a driver's license or any of this. um and actually, his ringtone when I call him, is this song from back in the day. It's like this old uh, what's it called? I can't even think of the band name, but it's called Tijuana Jail. You can Google it. It's on YouTube. Um, but yeah, that's the ringtone when I call him. And he's been pretty fun about it. It's really interesting because when I first started talking about all this taxation and theft stuff, probably like my first trip down the rabbit hole was like the 9/11 conspiracy theories, and then that got me into like the Federal Reserve. Zeitgeist was a big one, and America, Freedom to Fascism. Those were like my two documentaries that I was like trying to tell everybody about back in, like, I don't know. This is probably like right after 2008. Um, I was trying to show this to everybody, and I remember my dad thought I was crazy. My mom was kind of interested because she was into the JFK conspiracy.
Hmm.
Um, but they both kind of thought I was like, okay, what if I'm going crazy? What if I'm you know? Um, and now my dad's kind of like he's kind of finally come around to the whole taxation is theft thing. So he opposed that at first, and like now he's heard me say it so many times. And it's, but they've also been really supportive. My mom passed a few years ago, but she was very supportive of all this when I was doing it. So I guess I am pretty lucky with that.
That's really nice. That's great actually. I'm pretty sure they probably don't feel the same way about you liking pineapple pizza though.
No, my dad's he's I don't think he doesn't even really like pizza.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
that was great. I mean, we filled like almost 40 minutes. That was a really great interview. I really appreciated getting the chance to talk to you and learn more about you. Um, and I, all I gotta say is thank you very much. Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Yes,
absolutely,
thank you.
anytime, man. You know where to find me.
Okay, yeah, we'll find you. Well, you stand out in a crowd, so we'll find you.